we talk about climate change, we generally think of large phenomena with global consequences. We face enormous challenges to successfully control climate change. In order to prevent the Earth's temperature rising more than 2 degrees by 2020, global CO2 emissions cannot exceed 44 billion metric tons per year. Since 80% of greenhouse gases are attributable to wealthy countries, climate change seems to be their exclusive responsibility. However, history has shown us that many things are more difficult for Goliath than David. Did you know that 67% of the potential for reducing those emissions doesn't lie in wealthy countries, but in developing countries like Costa Rica? Costa Rica occupies only 0.034% of the Earth's surface. We are a tiny bundle of pixels on the Earth's photograph. Due to our strict environmental policies and modest industrialization, our total greenhouse gases account for only 0.016% of global emissions. Of that minuscule percentage, only 9% corresponds to emissions from Costa Rican coffee plantations. Furthermore, our coffee sector can be the perfect laboratory for research on agricultural processes that deal with climate change. Once they're developed within our small country, these valuable practices could be emulated by larger economies. NAMA is the acronym for Nationally Appropriate Mitigation Actions. This protocol establishes procedures to help reduce a country's emissions in ways that can be measured, reported, and verified. Costa Rican coffee has the privilege of being the world's first NAMA in the agricultural sector, properly registered in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. There are many reasons why Costa Rica is a great candidate. For more than 200 years, the country has produced coffee with socially responsible and climate-friendly practices. Thanks to the role of the 80-year-old Coffee Institute, we have the instruments to measure and tax the results of all the actions pertaining to the reduction of emissions in the agro-chain. According to the National Emissions Inventory, 65% of coffee in Costa Rica is shade-grown and generates 50,000 tons of CO2 per year. The lesser 35% of the crop is produced without arboreal coverage and generates at least 84,000 tons. That means we could reduce our emissions approximately 30% if we reforest coffee plantations. This combination of coffee plantations and tree canopies attenuates emissions, which increases the biomass that offsets carbon, reduces the use of fertilizers, and prevents erosion, among many other benefits. It's also a way of adapting to climate change. Since the shade lowers the temperature in the plantation, it won't be necessary to move crops to higher altitudes. The research on the use of nitrogenous fertilizers through constant soil analysis is allowing us to choose the right doses and formulas that will produce the least amount of emissions. This analysis will also help us determine if it is beneficial to either fertilize soil during rainfall or to use slow-release fertilizers. Carbon emissions are not generated exclusively in coffee plantations. This also occurs in mills, which consume large amounts of electricity and are exposed to thousands of tons of coffee residues during harvest season. Costa Rican coffee tradition is characterized by taking important steps forward. Since 1990, the coffee sector has voluntarily reduced the use of water by 92%, as well as installing processing plants for wastewater treatment. Since oxidation lagoons release methane, we are currently in the process of replacing them for stargrass irrigation fields, which considerably reduce emissions. In addition, mills are learning to use coffee pulp as fuel to generate the electricity they consume. This avoids having to use compost from organic waste, which releases greenhouse gas emissions. The objectives of the Costa Rican Coffee SNAMA, which tests were financed by BID Foment, are ambitious. 5 years from now, we want to be covering 25,000 hectares, which means that 27% of Costa Rica's land will be harvesting coffee. We'll be helping 6,000 coffee growers and 50 mills apply at least 2 of the technologies and processes to reduce emissions. By following these guidelines, we will prove that Costa Rica's coffee sector may be small in size, but it has big ambitions. We, Ticos, are determined to have the whole chain, from farm to coffee cup, become carbon neutral someday. This decision could have a much greater impact if buyers and toasters around the world support these initiatives and promote the consumption of environmentally responsible coffee. When we see the results down the road, we will proudly say that our David was able to give Goliath something more valuable than a kick on the knee. The idea that together we can stop climate change from growing and change the course of history.